Before darkness could touch any corner of creation, there was once a moment when the entire universe was immersed in pure light, a sacred order covering all, and I saw in that vision that every angelic soul sang with the same breath of praise, without the slightest error, without the slightest division. Everything moved like a transparent river reflecting the glory of the Creator, and among the countless rays of light, one stood out above all, radiating with brilliance beyond human imagination, and that was Lucifer, the morning star, the seal of perfection, wiser than any, more powerful than any soul, a beauty that added yet another layer of brightness to heaven itself. I saw in him not only a majestic form, but also the delicate harmony of wisdom and fervor, and like a song carved deep into memory, the other angels bowed before his authority, for in their eyes Lucifer was the very symbol of eternal beauty. Yet hidden within that very radiance lay the seed of a trial known fully by God, for every soul created carried within it the greatest gift, the gift of freedom. In the vision I heard the echo of Scripture, "You are the seal of perfection, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty." That line rose like a heartbeat from eternity, describing Lucifer as the first masterpiece of the Creator's hand. And indeed, I saw that God rejoiced in creating that soul, as an artist finds a sublime moment in his first work, and in heaven there had never been such complete joy. Lucifer walked among the angels like an unfading flame, his voice leading the hymns of praise. And I heard that even Michael, the mighty warrior, bowed before such wisdom and strength. As I listened in the unseen realm, I felt that the presence of Lucifer was not only beauty, but also the center that shaped harmony. For when he lifted his voice, the entire choir of angels blazed like 10,000 sparks uniting into an ocean of light. In the stillness of the higher realm, Lucifer was the opening song, the wind that carried all beings into the rhythm of devotion. I felt the pride of God as he beheld that soul, like a father gazing upon a grown son. Yet I also perceived that behind perfect brilliance there always lies a trial. For the brighter the light, the sharper its shadow, and God in his love allowed that freedom to exist. For without choice, there would be no love. In the vision I saw ranks of angels, from the seraphim burning like fire to the cherubim guarding the treasures of wisdom, all fixing their gaze upon Lucifer as upon a guiding star, and this revealed how great his influence was. By that influence, heaven rejoiced. Yet by that influence, heaven would one day bear a scar. At that time, there was no sign of a fall, only pride and radiant light. But in the silence, I heard a quiet whisper, that even perfection is not an end, but only the beginning of a deeper trial. The story does not stop at describing a beautiful angel, but opens for us the lesson that precisely when we are most gifted, precisely when we shine the brightest, that is also the moment we are in danger of drifting farthest from the source of light. And that is the first lesson of Lucifer, not merely the tale of an ancient angel, but a mirror for every soul. That eternal light never belongs to us. It always begins from the one who created it. Whoever forgets this has already taken the first steps toward the abyss. Lucifer did not fall in a violent moment, but in a tiny fissure, a nearly imperceptible crack within the light of perfection. From within that brilliance arose a fleeting thought, as fragile as breath, yet powerful enough to shake heaven itself. That thought was not sin at once, but only a question hidden deep in the mind, whether this light must forever be directed toward the Creator, or whether it could shine by itself as an independent source. It was within the freedom granted by God that this seed found soil to sprout. I saw clearly in the vision that it did not come from outer darkness, but from the very beauty of Lucifer, from the very wisdom and power that had been bestowed. What had been given as a gift could so easily be distorted. Wisdom could turn into pride. Beauty could become fuel for vanity. Power could shift into hunger for dominion. And when those gifts no longer looked toward the giver, they began to fracture. At first, Lucifer still held his role as leader, still sang with the choir, still received the admiration of angels, yet in his eyes there was a fleeting shadow of distance. Another angel noticed and asked if he no longer rejoiced as before, but Lucifer only smiled quietly and spoke in puzzling words, as though the light within had changed into a restless flame. That flame was not outright malice. It was curiosity, the urge to reach another height, and it was precisely that curiosity which led him to look not to the Creator, but to himself. I understood then that when a soul begins to compare itself with the very source of light, the crack has already opened. It was a flawed logic, yet enticing, for within him arose the sense that his radiance was enough to stand alone, enough to no longer be reflection. And once that thought appeared, it did not vanish. It repeated. It quietly took root. Beauty became a burden. Wisdom became a temptation. Glory became a doubt. Heaven still overflowed with order, but within the spirit of Lucifer, a small deviation was growing. I heard in the sacred realm that freedom is the highest gift, but it is also the most fragile place. That very freedom allows love to exist, but that very freedom also opens the way for arrogance. Lucifer began to frame his questions not around praising the Creator, but around his own worth. If I am light, must I bow to another light? If I am wisdom, must I submit to a higher wisdom? That question echoed in his consciousness like a voice in a valley, repeating until it became belief. The first crack in perfection never comes from outside, but from within, and that is the true beginning of collapse. In the purest light, a single spark of pride is enough to form a shadow, and once the shadow has appeared, it will not stop. Lucifer began to see heaven not as a song of harmony, but as a binding order, and instead of seeing himself as a masterpiece of love, he began to see himself as a victim of limitation. This was the dangerous inversion, for when love is distorted into limitation, every blessing becomes a chain. In the vision I witnessed, that radiant angel imprisoned himself within his own brilliance, no longer hearing the pure music of humility. And it was here that darkness first touched heaven, not as an assault, but as a faint whisper in the heart of the most beautiful one. I saw that when the shadow in the heart of Lucifer was still small, God came to him, not with fire of wrath, but with words of mercy. He called, his voice like a river flowing through stone, strong yet gentle. O child of light whom I have created, I know the thoughts within you. They are pushing you away from me. But remember that all the glory in you is my reflection, not your own. In that moment I felt a silence cover the whole of heaven, as though all of heaven was holding its breath to listen. Lucifer bowed his head, yet in his eyes flashed a strange light, and he replied, Father, was it not you who created wisdom in me? Was it not you who gave me surpassing light? How then could the desire to understand the depths be a mistake? Those words did not contain open defiance, but within them I heard the echo of unease, a shadow within a tone, once completely pure. God listened and answered with boundless love, O child, the desire for knowledge is noble, but you have turned it inward upon yourself instead of back toward the source. The light within you is my gift. It is not a spring of its own, and when you forget this, it will become a fire that consumes your soul. I saw God stretch his hand toward Lucifer, not as a judge, but as a grieving father watching his child slip from his embrace. That moment could have been the turning point, but Lucifer did not touch that hand. He bowed slightly, kept an appearance of reverence, yet the distance in his heart grew wider. The mercy of God still remained. He gave him more time, more chances, for love never forces. In the vision I saw that each day he called again, "My child, return. Do not let the light within you be hidden by shadow. If you return, the light will shine brighter. But if you turn away, it will become the abyss that swallows you." Those words were like a stream that never ceased. But within Lucifer, the flow was blocked by a hard stone called pride. I heard his whispered thought within, "I do not reject you, but do you not believe that my light can also stand on its own? Do you think I would betray?" And it was that thought that made him feel suspected. His wounded pride grew while his love cooled. I sensed the struggle, for deep within his soul there was still love for the Creator. Yet that love was being pressed down by the need for self-affirmation. And God remained patient, like parents watching over a wayward child. He reminded, "The light in you is not a chain. It is the part I gave, so you might share love. But if you keep it for yourself, it will become a burden." Every warning was joined with a promise of mercy, that if he returned, every crack would be healed. If he let go of pride, the light would be renewed. But I witnessed Lucifer turn his face away, keeping the outward appearance of reverence while his heart drifted farther, like one standing under the sun, but choosing to look only at his shadow on the ground. I understood then that mercy is not always received, and love sometimes becomes a deeper wound for the one who has chosen to refuse it. Those warnings and mercies still echo through the heavens, but for Lucifer, they became the witnesses of a widening distance, showing that even when the love of God never runs dry, the freedom of a soul can still choose another path, a path that leads light into darkness. One day God summoned all the angels, and in the vision I saw the whole of heaven covered in radiant light as though 1,000 suns had ignited at once. He proclaimed a mystery never before revealed. "I will create a material universe. The stars will move in order, the planets will shine, and on a small world called Earth, I will breathe the breath of life. Mankind will be created in my image, bearing both body and soul." When those words resounded, the angels bowed in unison. Their voices rose in praise, for the new universe was to be the mirror of infinite love and wisdom. But God did not stop there, and his next words shook the entire heavens. "My son, the eternal Word, will take on flesh. He will become man. His name will be Jesus. And in that fragile form, all creation will bow in worship." He felt heaven tremble, not from doubt, but from awe at so great a love. For this purpose went far beyond all understanding, that the Eternal would choose to become finite flesh to redeem mankind who did not yet exist. Many angels wept with joy, for the mystery of incarnation was humility beyond comparison, a love willing to lower itself to raise up the smallest. But within Lucifer, the light had begun to change into a restless flame. His eyes grew solemn, and I saw cold questions rise in his heart. Why was I, the one created, perfect, not chosen for that sacred union? Why would the Creator choose the lowly flesh of man as the throne for his glory? Those questions cut like blades into his pride, turning admiration into bitterness. God continued to reveal, mankind will be weak, they will fall, and I will carry their sins upon the cross. In the very suffering and death of the body, the angels bowed in wonder and worship, for never had there been love so great as to endure suffering for the sake of the rebellious. But Lucifer felt insulted. He saw the cross as humiliation. He saw bowing before a form of clay as something impossible to accept. And from that proud heart burst a thought, if God asks me to kneel before man, then he has lowered himself and if he can lower himself, why should I not raise myself to be equal with him? In that instant, the mystery of love became a stumbling stone for Lucifer. I felt the tremor spread through the heavenly host, like thunder breaking the dawn. The wonder and joy of the angels mingled with a strange silence that surrounded Lucifer. It was here that darkness first took shape, no longer a hidden question, but a cold stance, a silent refusal before the greatest mystery of love. And I knew in that moment perfection had fractured beyond repair, for when a soul refuses to bow before love, its very light becomes the fire that consumes itself. Lucifer no longer hid what burned within his heart. His refusal became a resounding declaration in the midst of heaven. A single word, short, yet tearing apart the peace. No, for the first time in the heavenly realm, a soul dared to answer the Creator with denial, and its echoes struck like thunder across the skies. God looked upon him with eyes full of mercy, but Lucifer felt only disdain. Within, he repeated again, no, this time his voice strong, like a king announcing a decree. And many angels heard in that word not only rebellion, but also the allure of a new idea. He stood tall, his cold gaze turned toward the multitude of his brethren, and said, do not see, what is being demanded of us is humiliation. We are light. Why must we bow before weak flesh? Why must our glory be placed beneath mankind? His words were not harsh, but filled with reasoning and persuasion, and I saw many angels begin to waver. Some felt that voice carried truth, others remained silent in confusion. The words of Lucifer were like a cold wind passing into the hearts of angels, planting in them the seed of doubt. And where doubt takes root, a harmony begins to break. Meanwhile, Michael stood nearby, his eyes full of resolve. But at that moment he had not yet spoken. Lucifer continued, we are children of light. Why must we bow to what is low? Why must we accept a plan without meaning? God demands what cannot be accepted, and if he lowers himself so far, then he has already lost his absolute place. The fire of pride had become words, and words had become weapons. Heaven was now divided in a tension never before known. The faithful angels remained silent in worship, but a third of the hosts leaned toward Lucifer, not because they desired evil, but because they believed he spoke aloud what they had never dared to think. I felt that in this very moment the freedom God had given was fully revealed. No angel was forced. Each had to choose to bow in humility or to rise with pride. And Lucifer stood like a tower, imagining himself the voice of justice. Yet in truth he had become the one who sowed rebellion. That first no was not only a denial of the mystery of incarnation, but also a declaration of war, the beginning of division, the thunder that gave birth to the greatest revolt in heaven. When Lucifer's call to rebellion spread throughout heaven, the realm was plunged into a heavy silence as though the whole universe was waiting for an answer. His words, filled with reasoning, had shaken more than a few hearts, planting in them a doubt whether God's plan was truly the only way. And in that moment a voice rang out, not from a lofty angel, nor from one most highly esteemed, but from Michael, the humble warrior, whose light was not as dazzling as Lucifer's, but whose loyalty bore not a single stain. His voice resounded, who is like God? Just one question. Yet it struck like a sword, cutting through the root of every doubt. The angels who wavered were suddenly awakened. They remembered their origin, that the light within them was not their own, but only reflection. Michael did not offer a long philosophy. He did not use ornate reasoning. He only declared the undeniable truth, that no one, not even Lucifer, could be compared to the Creator. I saw Lucifer falter, his eyes cold, as he turned toward Michael, for never before had anyone dared to confront him directly. He tried to hold his arrogance, yet I sensed fury rising within him, for with a single statement, Michael had shaken the confidence he thought unshakable. Michael stepped forward, small compared to the radiant Lucifer, yet his eyes steadfast, his voice calm but firm. You have let your light turn into darkness. You have raised yourself above the very source, and that is blindness. These words pierced the heart of the rebel, exposing the truth he wanted hidden. That pride had clouded his wisdom. I felt the shame like a blade twisting in Lucifer's soul, and from that shame flared rage, yet also fear, for he recognized his own weakness. The angels, still hesitating, heard Michael's words, and they awoke. They remembered the nature of love. They remembered that God did not command to humiliate, but to teach them the love of humility. Michael's cry continued to echo, "Who is like God?" And I saw the souls of angels shine again, as though the fire of loyalty had been rekindled after the wind of doubt. That question became a banner, a reminder that could not be silenced, and within it was a strength not born from the power of battle, but from absolute truth. Lucifer stepped back, his wings of fire trembling, not because of lack of strength, but because he faced one small in form, yet standing firm upon an unshakable foundation. And I knew that from that cry the fate of heaven had changed, for rebellion had met the wall of humility, and pride had been challenged by faithfulness. The war had not yet begun, but the line had been drawn. On one side, pride leading to the fall. On the other, loyalty leading to light. Heaven burst apart as the hosts chose their sides, 1/3 following Lucifer and 2/3 remaining faithful to God. And in the vision I saw the whole of heaven turned into a sea of fiery light. No longer a hymn of praise, but the clash of swords, the roar of thunder, as though the very stars were shaken. Lucifer stood at the head of the rebels, his once radiant face now become a dark flame. He spread his wings like a storm and cried out that he alone was the true light, that angels need not bow. Opposite him stood Michael, small in appearance but with a heart ablaze, his sword carrying no light of its own, but forged in absolute faith in the Creator. The two armies rushed upon one another, each strike tearing through the heavens, every blow like a star breaking and falling into the void. Angels who had once been brothers now looked upon each other with the eyes of enemies. Some even wept as they raised their weapons, for they knew they were striking those who had once sung with them, yet choice had divided them. Light and shadow could not be mixed. I felt the terror of it, for this was not a war of flesh and blood, but a war of will, where pride faced humility, where lies contended with love. Lucifer shouted, even as the battle raged. He cried that God was unjust, that true glory should belong to those who decide their own fate. But Michael answered not with argument, but with a cry repeated again and again through fire and thunder. Who is like God? Each time he spoke, the light of the faithful grew brighter, and I saw as though an unseen hand rested upon them, shielding them from the ruin of darkness. The battle dragged on, not to decide strength, but to reveal essence. For the longer they fought, the more Lucifer's light was deformed, from a blazing torch into black fire of destruction, while Michael's light grew ever clearer, not from himself, but because he perfectly reflected the glory of God. I heard the rebel souls scream, not only in pain, but in rage at their refusal to admit that love is stronger than pride. The battle reached its height when Lucifer faced Michael directly, one radiant in darkness, the other humble in light. Lucifer cried that he was the first star, the chosen one, the true light, but his voice was empty. echoing hollow-like sound in an abyss. Michael did not shout back. He only lifted his sword and spoke with the calm of faith. You are no longer light. You are only the shadow of your own pride. Those words pierced the very heart of Lucifer. He rushed forward with all his might. But that might was shattered, not by Michael, but by the evident truth that no one can rise above the source of light. Then I saw the final shock, and the darkness began to fall. The rebel angels, collapsing like stars, cut loose from the sky. Heaven was filled with fire. But amid the smoke and ash I saw the faithful light still standing, a clear flame that nothing could extinguish. The war of light and shadow had ended, and the true nature of every soul had been revealed. Those who were faithful shone forever. Those who were proud fell into the abyss. Lucifer collapsed before the light of truth, and in that moment heaven opened like a door of judgment. Each rebellious angel was swept away from the radiant place that had been their home, like shattered stars cast into endless darkness. I saw in the vision the heavens trembling, cries mingling with thunder, and 1/3 of the celestial realm falling into the abyss. This was not destruction, but separation, for light cannot contain darkness, and darkness has no place among pure love. Lucifer, once the morning star, was now the one cast out of glory. His face of pride turned to ashes, yet his gaze still burned with hatred. He would not accept defeat. He regarded his fall as proof that his rightful glory had been stolen. Heaven, after the battle, was heavy with silence. Michael and the faithful angels bowed, not in pride of victory, but in grief for the brothers they had once stood beside. And I felt the wound in heaven, a scar that would never fade. In the depths where Lucifer and his host had fallen, I saw a realm of chaos, not the final hell, but a gray and shadowed domain, cut off from the source of light, where peace was gone, where songs were replaced by cries. It was there that Lucifer swore to himself, if he could not reign in the light, he would make the darkness his throne. If he could not share in the glory of God, he would destroy the work that God loved. From that moment, hatred became his mission, and humanity, the new creation promised, became his target. I heard his roar, I will steal the love you have for mankind. I will plant doubt in their hearts. I will turn their freedom into chains. And when they fall, I will laugh upon the ashes of creation. The abyss became the dwelling of the fallen angels. Their once radiant light turned into black fire. Every beauty distorted, every strength made into a weapon against truth. Yet even as they sank into darkness, God did not withdraw his love, only that love could not reach the souls who had chosen to refuse it. I felt in that abyss a mournful echo, for no soul was born to fall. But when freedom becomes pride, light becomes a prison. And so the history of darkness began not merely as a distance of separation, but as a will of defiance, a choice to become the enemy of love. Lucifer, after being cast out of heaven, did not accept defeat as an ending. In the abyss, he swore that if he could not seize the light, he would destroy the work God loved most. In the vision, I saw that thought become the dark power that sustained him and his fallen host. And from it, a new mission was born, the mission of corruption and defilement. He turned his gaze toward mankind, the creature made in the image of God, and in them he saw what stirred his hatred. For God had humbled himself to take on flesh in order to raise them, something Lucifer would never accept. From hatred arose the desire to turn human freedom into a snare, their longing into temptation, their faith into doubt. In Eden, he did not come with violent force, but with a whisper, "Do you truly believe that God has kept the best from you? You will not die, but you will be like him, knowing good and evil. I saw Eve listen. The seed of doubt was planted, and from it the act of rebellion came. This is how Lucifer works, not by direct destruction, but by secretly corroding from within, sowing a question, sparking a thought, making the soul lead itself astray. After Eden, he did not cease. In history, he sought to shake faith. With Job, he wanted to prove that faith was only a bargain, that man was faithful only when blessed, and when stripped of everything he would renounce. But Job stood firm, and through his patience revealed that true faith does not depend on favor. When he came to Jesus in the wilderness, he revealed his deepest intent: to tempt the incarnate one with power, with glory, with shortcuts, instead of the way of the cross. If you bow and worship me, I will give you the whole world. But Jesus answered only with Scripture, you shall worship the Lord your God alone. And in that defeat, his true nature was exposed, that he did not only seek to draw mankind away, but to usurp God's place in worship. I deeply sense that Lucifer's mission never changes. It is to twist freedom, to turn the calling to be children of light into chains of desire, and by every means to make humanity forget their true origin. He sows doubt. He fans ambition. He turns holy longing into willful pride. And step by step, he binds souls into darkness. But I also saw an eternal truth, that his power is always limited. That light can never be entirely extinguished. And that even in the deepest darkness, a single spark of faithfulness is enough to mark the path home. Therefore, his mission, however dangerous, is only temporary, while love and truth remain everlasting. I saw that the story of Lucifer is not a distant page of history already closed, but a mirror for every soul today. Every detail in that rebellion is an echo of the truth we must face. In Lucifer's first light, I recognize the gift God bestows on every creature: beauty, wisdom, ability, all given not to glorify oneself, but to reflect his glory. When he looked upon his own light and thought it could exist by itself, I saw the image of each of us when we begin to forget the source, when we believe that what we have is of ourselves and no longer know it as grace. And, like him, when we forget, the shadow begins to stir. I deeply felt that God never desired the fall. He came many times to Lucifer with words of mercy, just as he still comes to each of us. He warns not to bind, but to keep the soul from rushing into the abyss. I saw that love never runs dry. Even when Lucifer turned away, God still said, there is still time to return. This taught me that for anyone, even when darkness surrounds, the path back is always open, as long as there remains a spark of humility in the heart. But here too, the lesson is clearest. Freedom is the highest gift, and because of it, the soul may choose light or shadow. No angel was ever forced, just as no human is compelled. In every decision, we are choosing heaven or the abyss. When Lucifer fell, I saw heaven tremble, for even in the most perfect place, freedom could still be distorted. And when he chose to make hatred his mission, sowing doubt, sowing desire, I recognized that rebellion still echoes in the heart of humanity. Every time we exalt ourselves to the point we no longer bow, every time we turn a gift into power for ourselves, we are retracing his steps. But every time we choose humility, choose love, we are standing with Michael and crying out, who is like God? The eternal lesson is not only a warning about a fallen angel, but a call to every soul. That light exists only when we remember the source. That love endures only when we give it back. I saw in the final vision Lucifer cast into the lake of fire, not as an act of revenge, but as the unavoidable result of a choice made steadfastly. Darkness cannot remain forever beside light. Pride cannot endure forever within love. And in that scene I heard the echo of truth. Good will overcome evil, not because it is stronger, but because good is the essence of the universe, the very life of God, while evil is only a passing shadow. As the story closed, I carried its echo in my heart, as a reminder to myself and to you, that every day we are rewriting that battle within our own soul. The choice is not made once, but in every moment, and both light and shadow begin from the smallest thoughts. I understood then that the lesson of Lucifer is both a warning and a hope. For if pride can cause a fall, then love can raise again. If darkness can flood in, then even a single ray of light is enough to drive it away. And so the final lesson for every soul is to remember the source, to live in humility and love, for in that is heaven within our very heart.